Hello again. This is Jim Vredos for Real Talk. My co-host Barbara Layton will be with us for our next show, and this is part two of a fascinating interview we're having with Jermaine Owens of North Fork Seafood. And that was a short little clip there of you and your daughter catching fish. Where was this now?
This was at a little creek in Southold,
Southhold,
I
okay.
figure I get it started early, you teach a kid how to fish, he'll eat forever.
There you go. And as those of you who saw the first part of our show, you know that Jermaine is born and raised in Greenport and is a fisherman. He started when he's literally 9 years old. He is now paid his dues in a sense, still paying it, but
Still paying.
but has opened up a wonderful market in Shelter Island.
Yes, sir.
And on what's the address there?
87 Ferry Road.
87 Ferry Road. So those of you in Shelter Island, it's unique. There's no other market.
There's
Right.
no other mark. There's one other guy over there at Clark Seafood,
Right.
that you can pick up some, some nice fish out of
Yeah.
a cooler.
Out of a cooler.
A lot of people do it.
All right, but
we got the brick and mortar, the storefront, so.
the storefront and the absolute freshest fish, delicious. You take such great pride in your product, and that's what we're talking about. Jermaine is a pioneer. His family goes way back, and as we said in the first segment, worked the business. But Jermaine is the first in the family now who's been able to establish that brick and mortar store. And it's yours now. This is your business, and you've established a brand. And there's a trust that is also been established. And I just admire you and respect the struggles that you've had. And again, we've become friends here
Absolutely.
as we've interacted at the various fish markets.
Mhm.
And I gotta say, the fish we've gotten, the wild salmon, the swordfish, the shrimp, just impeccable. And so I want to spend a little more time though. I think it's important for the audience to realize that when they sit down in some restaurant and they're ordering a beautiful piece of fish, it just doesn't literally drop from the sky here. There's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of sweat and labor that goes into it. And you in particular, being African American, having really had to struggle to establish yourself against a lot of forces that didn't want you to succeed.
Absolutely.
And you were saying during the break here that especially your father, you paid a certain price for that. He was a skilled carver.
Yes, he was.
He was, and took great pride. But you also mentioned that he began to get involved with drugs too. So why is that? Make the connections there for our audience to understand how struggles and hardships and ways of people trying to make it in this culture can throw some of us into a tailspin. Why is it so difficult?
It's well, we all know nothing is easy.
Right.
And my dad is from Millen, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
That's a rough part to live in back in the 50s and in the 60s. And
How did he come up here?
I mean, they were basically so poor. Him and my uncle just jumped in the car, and I think they drove to Florida, and had some family out in Greenport, and then came to Greenport. And my father told me a story. He says, "We heard that in New York, money grew on trees." So they tried to chase that, but had a different reality. It was harder, and black people sometimes choose the easy way, or what we think is the easy way. You know, my dad and, you know, I'll tell the truth, they got into drugs, and it was easy money. It was
But he
there's
worked
two
all, yeah,
addictions.
right.
You know, there's the drug addiction, and then the addiction to money. You know, he always worked hard.
Right,
It was always in him to go to work.
right.
You know, but you know, the extra stress of raising a family, and you know,
And not being able to really benefit from the incredible work he was doing.
Right.
Is that part of it? To be
well,
frustrated.
I don't think you can benefit chasing somebody else's dream.
Yeah,
You know, he worked really hard to try and secure somebody else's dream.
but that's the
Me,
American
it
dream.
was, yeah, it is the
You
American
work hard,
dream.
regardless
work
of
hard.
race, but that's not true.
And there's nothing wrong with working for people. Me, I just couldn't. If I'm going to burn a lot of energy, it's going to be on myself and my dream, not waking up to something I really didn't want to do or really wasn't happy doing. You know, so you know, a lot of that is just, you know, trying to stay focused in a difficult time. It's hard. You know?
You know, we were talking about you went to Greenport Public Schools.
Mhm.
Did you feel that way too? That they were just going through the motions, that they really
Absolutely.
didn't care and get on with it?
They pushed a lot of us out. They put us in what they call 811, 8 teachers, 1 aide, 8 students, I'm sorry, 1 aide and 1 teacher, where you it was like a study hall. They weren't teaching us anything.
Yeah.
We had to go out of our way for Black history to learn
Yeah.
a bunch of different stuff. Um,
So yeah, just you were sitting in a room. Here's some paper and pencil, and
Right.
just draw a couple of stories.
that was it.
Yeah,
You know, and the teachers really weren't into teaching us.
they didn't.
So I
Yeah.
came from an aggressive family. My dad, you know, at one point he was like about respect and like kind of fear too, you know, because in the drug world is you got both sides of the coin, you know. So for me, it was very important for me to take what the good that, you know, I seen him get up and go to work every day.
Right.
You know, I seen him work hours and hours and hours, you know, trying to accomplish his goal for what he's seen for his family. So, you know, I nixed the drugs, and I took the fishing side of it, and just yeah, basically started building my brand
Yeah.
off that you know. I took a lot of anger. I had a chip on my shoulder, so I decided to use the energy in a different way. Instead of being angry, I felt like, well, I'm just gonna focus on my craft.
How did you? How were you able to do that? Was it the love of the fishing? Was there a mentor you mentioned?
Dave Brennan, you
David
know,
Brennan.
I had,
Somebody that gave you that opportunity.
and he really didn't have to. You know, I was this Black kid, you know, snotty nose, you know,
Yeah.
my clothes wasn't really matching, you know. And I told my dad, he looks at me, he said, well, why you hang out with those white people all the time? I said, because I don't learn nothing here. I'm down there starting generators and working on motors and helping people. And
Did you ever talk to David about why he did what he did? Did you ever have that conversation?
we never,
Has he got passed on?
no, Dave is still with us.
Well,
Dave,
he's still okay,
I met him when he was in his 30s, you know.
right?
And you know, but we never really had that. He was just a real genuine guy that was looking for hard workers. It didn't matter what you looked like. He
But
just wanted you to work.
Wouldn't that be an interesting conversation? Maybe something happened in his background. I mean, this is what we're talking about, building a community here, so diverse and rich and in the Hamptons, that we're all part of this effort to this beautiful, beautiful land that we have in the sea and the water and so on.
Mm.
And rather than just pit each other against each other,
Right.
I'm curious about David. What happened to him early on? My guess is
He was military, so
military guy too.
he had brothers that looked different from him. That he was in
I see.
in a rabbit hole with. That he
I
fought
see.
right
Okay.
next to. You know what I mean? I think that was it followed him because I never felt any type of racism when I was around him. They
He's
changed my life, man. He
he-
changed my life. He
sounds
put
like
me in a position where
yeah.
I made a lot of money when I was young. And like I said, being on a boat, I made a lot of important decisions. Being out on the water, you get a different view of the island. You see all the beautiful houses and what your life
Mhm.
could be if you focused and you stayed around the right company, right? You stayed around the right people,
Yeah.
and you can. It's all right here. You can grab it. But like I said, they taught me a lot. My business sense came from Dave.
And David is from Greenport too, or
Dave was from Patro.
Patrick, but he's in Long Island kid.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so he knew the ropes and he opened up this avenue of opportunity which you've taken. And so what is your goal?
My goal is just to keep succeeding, keep being more than anything. I want to be a great role model to my daughter. Riches for me is not in money. It's in getting up, watching the sun, being out on a boat.
Right.
It's not financial money can only take you so far. We all need it. Trust me.
Yeah.
But it's different from me just having a beautiful wife, a great family. I own my own house, own business. I'm a landlord.
Yeah, and your daughter's 16,
My daughter's 15 going on 16.
and you told me you moved to the Freehold
Right.
school district because the schools are better there.
Southold is a great
Southold,
school.
sorry,
It's,
yeah.
it's a great school. She went to Greenport for a little bit, but she really elevated, in Southold, and they got a lot of different things going on. Like she's involved with robotics, and she's a high honor roll kid, and that's my richness. Watching her and trying to set something up for her because with Black people, we really don't leave anything behind for our kids. 95% of the Black families
Nothing,
leave
zilch.
nothing,
Right.
zilch, and we can't build on that.
Right.
So my goal is to leave my kid with a couple of houses, give her the leg up that I didn't have. It was hard back in the 80s. Can you imagine right now? It's crazy out here in this world.
Yeah. But you now you did have an aunt, right, in the city. So you got into the city every once in a while.
Yeah, my Aunt Jackie, yeah.
And Aunt Jackie, all right. And you have got a big smile about that.
Aunt Jackie was
So
great.
so you weren't just this rural kid, I don't know, Tom Sawyer and Jim with the fishing pole. You know what I'm saying? So you got into the city. So how was that?
Concrete jungle. It was a different experience. I actually had my first oyster, and I got sick off it, and I didn't touch oysters for 20 years, 30 years, and I had one of my buddies' oysters, Pecana Gold, Matt Ketchum,
Right.
and that changed my life. Also,
So even though you took the oyster, you had the oyster in the city.
yeah, it was
So
rotten. It was
You
terrible.
didn't go to the oyster bar.
Right.
Well, all right.
It
So,
was right off the street. It was like a farmer's market.
oh my, okay. Even, yeah.
And
All right,
it was
so
just
you-
a terrible experience.
You learned your lesson.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and so that you have impeccably fresh, I sound like Julia Child here, impeccably fresh seafood. And you don't wanna poison people and stuff.
No.
So but again, the contrast of coming to the city every once in a while and see what was going on there. You said what did your aunt lived in the Upper East Side?
Yeah,
or?
she was like Park Slope area.
Oh, in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Okay,
Brooklyn, yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So how is that back and forth?
It was a lot of the train we get on the train and that was an adventure, coming into the city where you leave in like sleepy Greenport, right? Back in the 80s, it was a fishing town, but it was nothing, it was like no one there, except the
Yeah.
locals.
Right.
But when coming into the concrete jungle, man, it's
Yeah.
like you look around, it's like these huge buildings, you got people bumping you, everybody's in a rush and horns going and
Yeah.
sirens and like every 2 minutes it
Yeah.
was the crime rate was crazy. I'm like, what the hell you
Yeah.
got me? Get me back to Greenport. I
Right.
mean, but I adjusted, acclimated to
You
it.
did. Yeah.
And we ended up having a good time whenever we went, whenever she came to Greenport
Now-
and got us.
So your daughter now is gonna be in a couple of years, ready for college. What do you think?
I mean, she's
Yeah.
already, and I love it because at 15 years old, she already know what she want to do. I didn't know what I wanted. I mean, I knew I wanted to have a retail store,
Right.
but college wasn't for me.
What does she
You
want to
know,
do?
She's like, physics and
Physics,
she's into a lot.
natural sciences,
Natural science, like
maybe the medical field too.
she's so smart. She could do anything she want at this point.
That's must make you feel so.
That's my richness.
Yeah.
That's my $1 billion baby.
Now, as you've started this business now, tell our audience a little more about what's going on here among the small fishermen. I mean, look,
Regulations is a big thing.
regulations. I had what was her name? Fairbanks on. I'm sorry for blocking on her first name. That she wrote that famous book about the boat being lost in Montauk and so on, and talking about the small fishermen who were lost on that boat and so on. It seems like what the fishermen now are having to do is go after the sort of fish that rich people can afford in fancy restaurants. I mean, what is it, like $30, $40, $50 now for, I mean, easy. In the old days, right? The old days, I mean, fish was reasonable.
Yeah. I'm coming from an era where when the fish were plentiful and like a flounder was $2 a pound.
$2 a pound.
For
Now, what is
fillet.
it
Now
now?
it's $26, $27 a pound.
And that's through you, so the restaurant,
right.
you're paying what, 40?
Yeah, I mean,
40,
they gotta
45
cook it.
bucks.
I'm not cheap, and
No, right.
I go to the restaurants. They pay for a premium price, right? You go to an expensive clothing store.
So where are we at on this? The regulations you meant?
Regulations are terrible. In the 80s, we had no regulations. Now they regulate everything, which is a gift and a curse because I'm seeing a lot of the old fish that got fished out come back. Blowfish are coming back. Weed fish are coming
That's
back.
good, right?
Kingfish are coming back, which is a great thing.
But who's gonna buy it though? They gotta be marketed, no, right?
Yeah,
But they're
yeah.
back, okay, all right.
And so it's like I said, it's a gift and a curse. Like seeing these fisheries come back is great, but then the bag limits and the regulations on guys like us, is hard. So
Is it
I can
unfair?
only catch
Is
a
it
certain
unfair?
amount. It's
Tell-
luckily
yeah.
I got a huge network of guys that I can go to all over the island and accumulate enough fish to run these markets.
Right.
You got to go to different boats. You can't just go to one boat no more. You might go to one boat, he got 70 pounds of fluke. Then you make you go down the line, But, these guys, they're struggling. They barely, I mean, it's $200 to start their motors.
What else? What else is involved in the business that you would like to see really change? For the smaller.
I would like to
fishermen.
see the people that's wearing suits and ties to actually come out and get on a boat and see what we go through. Maybe they'll have a change of mind. These drag boats are catching fish that they gotta throw back and the fish are dead. We could do better. If you don't want us to keep these fish, let's bring it to shore and feed hungry people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when if I have fish for too long, 4 days, 5 days is too long for me personally,
Right.
which is fine. You can eat it. I take it to, you know, Cass is a local food bank
Pantry and
pantry down there, and you know, I give the rest of what I got to people in need because I've been poor. I know what it's like not having food for days. You know, so you give these people a chance to eat a super protein. You know, give them a good meal.
yeah.
But it's tough when you have these guys throwing back the college years of college for their kids.
Yeah.
You know, they could do better. We could do better with this fishery. So, you know, until we stand up, I remember in the 80s, before we get too late, they were trying to get a bunch of captains to come to these meetings and fight these things, but no one did. So it got too far gone, and now it's hard to reverse.
When you say the captains now, these are the higher ups that are controlling the boats and the fishermen and getting, so they're making a lot of money here, so they don't care, since whatever you guys do, they don't want the regulations, but
No.
you say it's a mixed blessing.
Yeah.
The water is still clean though, right? Or it's not as clean as it used to be, nothing,
I mean, you'll find the water the cleanest at high tide. You know, low tide, you'll see all the shit, but you know, the ocean is like a toilet flushing. It cleans itself out. You know.
okay, well,
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, trust me, all the waste and stuff that goes into we still have pretty clean oceans,
out here.
an
yeah.
abundance of bait that carry these fish that come through and spawn in the beginning of April, coming into May. I would say the waters are pretty clean out here.
All right, and irrespective of that reference to the toilet, I don't know how much we're gonna,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
just teasing you. But now, all right, I don't want you to give up all the family secrets here, but you have to find, you go where the fish go. You have to figure out where they're migrating, right? So you get out there on the boat and you're going where? You're going all kinds of
In the
places,
beginning,
right?
because like I said, all the fish, all of the females, the big fish come into the bay here by Shelter Island and, you know, out towards Orient, and they lay their eggs because of the concentration of bait fish, of food that's here for them. So I don't have to go really nowhere. I can back right out of the dock and drop the line and get striped
Wow.
bass, fluke, you know, bluefish, porgies,
Right.
and then as the season progresses, you might have to follow them out to Montauk, Block Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and
Right.
we don't chase them further than Block Island. That's a
And
3 hour
you
ride.
get tuna?
Tuna is, you know,
That's something
locally, you get them off Montauk,
Right.
early May, swordfish will start coming through, mahi, all of those warm water, triggerfish, you know, they follow
Trigger-
that warm water coming down from Florida and stuff like that. So it gets very active around here.
It just sounds like you're so in sync. You are part of nature. You really get to know when the different fish migrate and so on, and the temperatures and it's as you described. You're off in the boat looking at land there. There's a great peacefulness.
There is a
and
peacefulness.
yeah.
Like I said, Dave, he saved my life. That little bit of peace that I had, it was night and day. You know, you got my mom and them. They live in this crazy life where no kid should see it. And then, you know, you jump on a boat and you're like,
You're free.
you're free. There's no worry on a boat. You cut off your cell phone. Can't nobody get to you unless
Right.
you want to talk to somebody. You know, and that for me was a breath of fresh air. Is what I needed in my life to control the all the chaos
And some of the anger you were
and
feeling
a
too.
lot of the anger,
Yeah.
a lot of the anger, you know, and being able to deal with people on the boat. I dealt with, you know, we used to carry 60, 80 people a day. So
Wow.
I've learned to deal with different people.
Yeah.
You know, I've become a people person instead of this kid with a chip on his shoulder, and
And
it really helped me.
and your T-shirt, that's not Huck, it's Hook.
It's hook. That's
Performance
right.
fishing.
That's right.
All
That's
right.
right. We operate on another frequency. You know, I have to, being a black entrepreneur. You know, I gotta stay hip, gotta stay trim. No, I'm just kidding.
You're natural. That's but so one more minute we have again. One more time. North Fork Seafood is on
Shelter
right?
Island.
Shelter Island, sort of the middle of the. I've got to come visit.
Yeah, come visit.
And talk about being. It's interesting, right? Shelter Island is even more laid back, probably, than Greenport was in the '80s.
Well, it's funny
It's hard
because I had a best friend named Adam Johnson on Shelter Island. I hung out on Shelter Island for years,
Right.
you know, so I kind of had people kind of knew me on the island.
Yeah.
And then during COVID, I had a lot of home deliveries
Right.
on the island, you know, West Hampton, all over the place,
Right.
you know. So, you know, people, they know me.
Well, and I know you got to get back. I'm so grateful for you to take the time. This man has to go back now and carve some more fish and get it ready for the fish market.
20-hour days, that's what we used to, 20-hour days over here.
I'm so really blessed and glad that we've met.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to seeing you for many, many years and
Yes, sir.
getting the wild salmon, whatever you recommend, I get.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna have to talk to Beatty about the shrimp or whatever she wants, and just thank you so very, very much.
Thank
You
you.
add so much to the community, it's so important, and I'm so glad that you came on. Real talk,
So,
people who are making a difference in the Hamptons, and Jermaine Owens is one of those people, and that makes this place worth coming out and
Wow.
enjoying.
wow, I appreciate that. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, man.